Welcome back to the Lift Free and Diet Hard podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Coates. Join me along with industry leaders and friends on a quest to get more people through the gym door and eating and living healthier. Join me where evidence meets empathy while rejecting fitness industry fads and extremism. Let's begin. James Cappola, it is an honor to finally get you on here. I know that your people are going to love getting you loose on the nuance of a podcast, taking your 20 years of coaching experience. You've got a Bachelor of Exercise Science, and well, you're one of my favorite people that calls out a lot of the, what I like to call shitbaggery of the fitness industry on your social media. I know that stresses you out a little bit when people clap back, but I don't know how you handle it. It's great to have you on.
Hey, no problem. And it's my pleasure to call out the shitbags because you have to know that there are reliant, credible professionals out there like you and myself and everyone else who you have on your podcast.
Yeah. If only people could see you, me, and Brad the Sober Bodybuilder, Brad Jensen's like group chat. We chat about all the crap that we see all the time. Um, yeah. So let's go right into the fun stuff. Why doesn't
Sure.
shame work for motivating lifestyle change?
Because number one, they're just projecting their own insecurities because no one with their shit together does that, or no one with their shit together stands behind shaming someone else. Because I I just always think to myself, like, if someone did that to your mother or someone you cared about, you would not be okay with it. But for some reason, when you do it because you're in the guise of a concern for health. It's bullshit. I can see right through you. You're just not, you got this fitness shit down, kind of, but you just don't have the emotional intelligence aspect. So instead of digging deep and admitting that you have some flaws, you just double down and say that that's weak.
Is that why we're seeing a corner of the industry demonizing Ozempic as if it's cheating?
Yeah,
Because
that's bullshit.
they sort of have this, and I mean, like I'm fine with the concept. I've even shared a post my friend Dean Somerset wrote, which is really just a rephrasing of the old Arnold quote about like, muscles a visible status symbol. I'm comfortable with that. It's contextual, okay? But I think for a lot of these people, their physique is status, and they're afraid that, well, if Ozempic becomes mass available and all of a sudden everybody can get leaner, it's not exactly that Ozempic will suddenly turn
Sure.
everybody into looking this way, that their special unique thing, the only thing they really have going for them, suddenly becomes normal, and they no longer have this niche status anymore. Do you think that's the fear?
I think that the fear is that they pretty much train people as they train themselves, and they become very good at normalizing deprivation and meal plans or running yourself into the ground. And it's very easy to take advantage of someone's vulnerability. And if they have a solution and they're not as vulnerable anymore and they're gaining confidence, then they're not really the easy target that they used to be. So instead of having a concern for people and their health and quality of life, they're just making it about them
Why do vulnerable people gravitate towards the less ethical side of our industry and their messaging?
because they talk to themselves that way.
So elaborate on that. Explain that.
Sure, sure. They feel like shit. They want someone to confirm that they should feel like shit, right? They want someone to confirm, yeah, you have been living your life wrong. You shouldn't be eating this. Oh, I know, I know. I should be fasting, right? I should be having this supplement. I should be doing this. Yes, yes, and yes. Meanwhile, when you have someone saying, no, it's fine, eat intuitively, have balance, you're not going to work out every day. It's like, well, I've tried all that. I've tried all that. I can't do that. It doesn't work. Right. So they literally just believe based on the limiting beliefs that they should be punished. And they don't realize it in the moment, but the people punishing them doesn't give two shits about them. They just want the before and after.
Do you think on some level there's an element of limiting belief? And I just had Natalia Mello on the podcast, and I know you guys get along great, and we talked about limiting beliefs. Do you think that on some level these people are living in a fixed identity, and this is they're trying to make an effort, and it's a token effort, but ultimately it's to prove that they can't do it, that they're the sort of person who can't do it, and they'll try the extreme thing, fail at it, knowing that they're going in to fail on some subconscious level, only to then go, well, I tried. I'm not the kind of person who can do this.
Yeah, it's confirmation bias. They'll basically look for pitfalls in their journey that they can associate with them being a failure. And that will be more evident than the thousands of things that they're disregarding, like feeling better, moving better, gaining strength, etc., that they're just leaving on the back burner because it's not enough proof or validation that they need, especially if other people can't see it.
You talk a fair bit about working with clients who've been through this process before. How do you break that cycle?
You make them feel like they're winning. You just give them attainable action items that are actually realistic within their day to day, and they can cross it off a list. Wow, I'm doing this. I'm really doing it. And even the professional says I'm doing great. And then that becomes a new baseline of behavior. Now, since we know that we can do that, we add a little bit more and so forth and so forth. And then before you know it, you're only in competition with yourself.
Okay. Take us further through that. Like some of the other things that, maybe it's specific examples of challenges that people have had.
Sure. So everyone has this idea, like, I know, work out every day, 10,000 steps a day, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, just swipe all that shit out. Stop. And I'm like, what are you doing right now? And it's like, well, I'm just trying this, I'm trying this, I'm trying this. And I'm like, all right, how many steps do you average per day? Like 4,000 or something. I'm like, all right, so let's try 5,500, a little bit out of your comfort zone, but still attainable. How much protein are you having? I don't know. I was like, okay, so let's go over what 5 ounces of protein looks like, how many grams that is, if you can incorporate that into your meals. What about fiber? Okay, a couple of blueberries this much, apple this much, peas, beans, etc. And is it realistic to have this within your diet? Yes. Okay, great. You see how well we're doing here. You see how easy this is so far. And then instead of saying, all right, we're going to do fasting, we're going to do this and overcomplicating it, you just talk to them, talk with them like a human being and not at them.
I
It's
love.
not easy, but it's very simple if you just connect.
Okay. So it sounds like part of this is highlighting what someone's already doing well,
Yeah,
even if they're
right.
not ready to make changes.
Right, right. And almost 9 times out of 10, they're like, I know that I shouldn't be eating. And they'll put in like whatever food, cookies, pasta, whatever. I'm like, who the fuck says you can't eat that? You're an adult. You can eat whatever you want. You're just saying that because you feel like you don't have control when you eat it. That's the problem, not the food itself.
What do you do when you have someone who is struggling with externalizing locus of control? Natalia and I just talked about this too, where they will say things like, I'm addicted to sugar,
Sure.
or other things that deflects responsibility from the choice in front of them.
Sure. I say that you're convincing yourself of a narrative that you believe you don't have control over, and that's what has to change. You also have to stop trying to quit things cold turkey because the more you do that, the more you're going to think about it. So we have to just slowly change our habits, and you got to be patient with yourself during that time. There's no other way. Sorry. Just like throwing it out, you're just avoiding the problem.
Do people who are struggling here, do they struggle to give themselves grace?
Oh, of course. Of course. Yeah, the majority of my clients, the majority of the people who sign up in the beginning, they think that they're failures or they think that they're going to fail. And I say, as long as you don't quit, you're not going to fail. But I have a lot of people who sign up, make a big investment, and 3 weeks in, because these scenarios are not ideal, I don't hear from them again. And I messaged them. I said, hey, I'll pause your program. When you come back, we can start up again. This is your investment. It's not going anywhere. I'm sorry that you felt this way. I'm not going to reprimand you for whatever you think you've done, but just come back when you're ready.
Is that part of making them feel safe and building trust with them
Yeah.
because they expected something else?
I know when people s sign up very excited. I'm like, you're very excited right now, which is great. You should be. But life is still going to come your way. Like I'm not like magic. You're going to feel like shit again. Okay. Like that's when you reach out to me. That's when we talk. That's when we go through these feelings. You don't avoid them. And then, they binge and they're too embarrassed, and then I don't hear from them.
How do you get through to someone when they are in that place where they feel a lot of shame and they're ghosting you as the coach? Whether it's not even someone has a coach,
Sure.
but they're right now stuck in a shame spiral.
I let them know it's safe. I don't message them every day. I message them maybe like twice a week. Like, hey, just reminding you I'm here. When you're ready. I'm not forgetting about you. I'm not gonna like push you, but and most of the time they do come back, and then we talk, and then it's nowhere near as bad as they thought it was. But what did make it bad is the all or nothing mindset that came with the isolated incident, right? I mean, you know as well as I do that if you have a huge ice cream sundae and you feel guilty about it, fine. But if you just say fuck it for the next 3 days because of that, now that's a pattern.
So that kind of goes back to the story and the narrative that people tell them. And this is something that I try to challenge people on is to recognize those stories as narratives because on some level, I think when the wheels fall off, and Natalia and I, again, because there's a lot of overlap between these conversations, anyone listening is probably going to enjoy that conversation. I think on some level, people are looking for justifications and reasons to engage in that behavior. I think that's really complex stuff.
Sure, sure.
So, how do you get someone,
That's why I used to black out.
say
So I
that
could just,
again?
that's why I used to black out on the weekends. So I could just eat and binge and not care.
Well, do you want to share more about what that experience is like? Because you've also walked many miles in the shoes of the people we're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, I was just on a podcast recently where I was saying like it's amazing how I used to dissociate like the amount of binge drinking and like party drugs and stuff like that on the weekend, but because I was so like healthy Monday through Friday afternoon, I just kind of blocked that part of my brain out and I was like, ah, why is my body not like responding the way I want? It's because you're blacking out every weekend, right? And it's just like we write the life that we want to live in the moment based on our comfort levels. And growth is actually taking a moment to realize like my life is not going in the direction that I wanted to. And that is more important than the instant gratification that I get on the weekends.
How long did it take you to shake it off?
God. I'd say 13 years.
And what was the catalyst for your change, and what did the change look like? What kind of timeline? Because I'm guessing it wasn't a snap of the fingers. I'm sure it was
No,
gradual.
no. I don't know if I talked about this the last time I was here, but I was blackout at a bachelor party, and this was 2021, so the year after COVID, and I was in Cabo, and it was just this photo of me with my shirt off at 250 pounds, just like the worst version of me possible. And it's not so much how fat I looked, it was just like I just looked so unhealthy. And I'm like, this is not the owner of a fitness company, of a training company, you know? Like I was able to forgive myself for my weight, but like not like the actions of what I was doing. And that's when I was like, all right, I obviously can't do this if I want any sort of life or future. I got to find a solution. So I just finally just taking care of my mental health and I realized how much alcohol wasn't serving me, drugs weren't serving me. And I gave myself grace when it came to my body and I was patient with myself. You know, I got used to not wearing like outerwear everywhere. I was like, if I'm gonna if I need to be comfortable with myself, I need to be comfortable with showing myself in public. And this is when on social media, I was starting to be open, like showing myself with my shirt off. And I would say, like, I'm terrified. So you saw my growth in real time.
That takes vulnerability.
Oh, yeah. And that's what I was masking with the drinking and everything.
This one, and this is one of these low-hanging fruit type things that trainers always love as hot takes, but I think you can present a nuanced thing on it. A month doesn't pass where some post is not, somebody has said, oh, some version of trainers need to look the part, right? And there's all kinds of different versions of that when I see the smiles. So what's wrong with that sentiment when people say, hey, a trainer needs to be ripped or lean? Because there's a lot of dimensions to this.
Because I managed hundreds of trainers and some of the shittiest ones were the most jacked ones. It means nothing. I've seen too much on the other side. And if you base the credibility on how they look, you're gonna be fucked. Because I've managed a lot of overweight trainers who are on their own journey, who had insane emotional intelligence.
Go on. Like
No-brainer.
that's big.
And they're able to actually apply their education to the individual that they're working with real life experiences, not like, no, 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 you got to just stop eating pizza. You got to do this. You got to do that. You know, like that's fucking easy. All you guys talk about is how hard you work and discipline, and you don't do the extra work it takes to connect. You just tell people, don't do this, don't do this. Of course, you'll get in shape. It's so dumb. And they just think, like, well, I have the body, though. It's like, cool, cool. When you're 6 feet under, no one's going to give a fuck. Were you a good person? Were you a decent person?
I'm a big believer. I like the thing you said on the journey because there's a bit of a nuanced take here. I believe if you're relatable and you
Hmm.
feel safe, there's a good portion of people who will self-select to that because they feel like that person is more like me. I've got coaches
Yeah,
that I
right.
mentor and train who they're not ripped bikini models, but parents, young children, and women who are kind of in a similar place in their life really find they gravitate to them and they feel safe. And you know, women in their perimenopausal women, and if moms are not, don't always relate to 21-year-old guys. And I'm like any 21-year-old guy who's in this industry. I'm like, all the power to you. Gave the education, gave the experience, what have you, right? Like, good, you're on a good path. But I also believe in life experience too, and that's going to go a long way.
Absolutely. It just, it's amazing the amount of people who think that I show the mediocrity or I enable obesity because I'm kind and because I don't live up to that standard of having like single digit body fat. And it's just like, I know how immature they are. I know how much more about life they have to learn. That's why I'm never really threatened. And when I call people out, it's never really to them. It's just to the people watching so that they aren't fooled or misled.
And it's a tricky line. I'll use an analogy for this. And I like Joey Swole's media. On the average, I really do. I think Joey, goes about it with good intentions. I think as a byproduct of his videos calling out the stupid shit when people film and act poorly, I think more people are afraid of being filmed or think that this stuff is far more common. And I recently replied to a post about this. And I've been working in commercial environment gyms and working in them for over 14 years, lifting in them for over 2 decades. And I cannot think of a single incident, a full
Same.
time
Same.
where something like this happens. So
Same. I've never actually seen bullying in person either in a gym.
I've seen it. Now, I will say that I've definitely seen I've broken up fights in gyms. I've seen some
Yeah,
weird
yeah,
shit.
broken
Now
up a fight too.
it's rare, but I've never seen the filming thing. But of course, the risk with this media is it can create the sense that it overrepresents the frequency and the risk, I think, of these
Yes,
things.
yes, and it creates a stigma around the gym, which I don't like. I try to remind people all the time could be one of the best environments you could ever put yourself in. You know, there's so many more people willing to help you rather than hurt you.
And so let's go back to what made me think of that. While I do think there are a small handful of loud, obnoxious voices on social media that will quote fat shame someone for even being in the gym, my personal experience is that anybody who is a true ambassador to the gym and love and this world has been good to them, if they see someone, let's say that person is, quote, visibly overweight, and you can usually tell a few things, they're often wearing larger, more concealing clothing. Okay, right? And they usually look like they may feel a little uncertain about being in the gym. That's always a person that if I ever make eye contact with them, I always wear a warm smile because I can look like a big scary dude. So
Of course,
I always
of
kind of
course.
like warm smile, nod of approval. But I know true gym lovers and ambassadors. They are
Yeah,
quietly cheering for that person and they absolutely approve of their, not that it approval's even warranted, but they absolutely approve of their presence. And I think that it's rare for someone to be negative about it. But unfortunately, we do deal with it on social media sometimes.
yeah. Well, I mean, all the people you, Rob, and everyone else, Natalie, and like everyone, or like, is it Natalia or Natalie?
Natalia, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like everyone with credibility knows who I am and what I'm about, and I know what they're about. We all know who the real ones are. The people who call me out always grossly misinterpret what I do, right? Like, oh, you're just calling people out for clout, you promote obesity, this and that and everything. And it's just like I know that they're a clown and I'm not like threatened. They're just so used to their echo chamber that like when they see someone with credibility that goes against their dogmatic views, they just talk shit or label or stigmatize. And I think it's good that a lot of us have built a community of credible, authentic coaches and trainers and like professionals who stay in touch and just like communicate and spread ideas and positivity because that's what this industry needs because we're being overrun by people who prefer clicks and views over treating someone with respect.
And then you get the flip side. So uh, sometimes you'll see Ben Carpenter or Spencer Nadolsky. Now, I know Spencer personally, and I've been following Ben for a while. These are two of the most empathetic and evidence-based people who create resources to help people who want to improve their metabolic health and lose the weight, do it in an evidence-based and empathetic way. And
Sure.
on occasion, they get attacked for promoting
Oh
fat
yeah.
loss or like and being fat phobic. And then it's like, holy sweet shit. These are two of the best people who stand up for people who are working on this. And you can't win if they're getting attacked for that.
Oh yeah. Just if someone has it out for you, they have it out for you. There's no changing their mind or anything. I've learned that. There's no talking sense when they go, "Oh, I haven't thought of it that way." No, they've already made up their little mind.
I think you and I agree. There's almost no risk whatsoever of a everyday person who is attending the gym ever being subjected to this kind of like online ridicule or any of this sort of stuff. Like the risk is just so low compared to the rewards of getting in the gym on a regular basis.
Sure, sure, absolutely. I agree.
Good. All right, let's have some more fun. Talk to me about this. The industry and especially social media is losing what fitness is all about. You said that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We got people eating raw cow brains, right?
Which
Like,
is really dangerous.
yeah,
Mad
but
cow disease, yeah.
that plus like just making such a big deal about seed oils when all the research points to it not even being close to as much of an issue as they say it is. And it's like there's so many more important things to focus on, but you just want to stomp your feet about this because this is what people are bitching about. That's why you never felt passionate about this. You didn't look it up yourself before it was a thing. No one did, right? And it's just like no shame of yelling and shouting in a fucking grocery store with your shirt off. It's like this is what we've been like reduced to, and it's just like okay, so it really is about clicks and views and clout as opposed to actually helping people, and it's sad.
And it's wild because, I mean, I put up a post and I rarely take anything down, but I put up a post and you know, I can't remember exactly how I framed it, but I did name three very well-known grifters, charlatans, who, again, walk through grocery store aisles and demonize single scary sounding ingredients. And the responses I got, I had one guy who was like, who'd been I think, a pretty engaged follower, and he was mad and unfollowed me. And I mentioned Lane Norton and like, here's a better resource, and he told me how much he hated Lane and blah blah blah, and he was spitting fire, and it's like, and again, like I said earlier, I don't know how you and Brad will deal with some of the people who like stitch you into videos and are attacking you guys because I just don't have the bandwidth to deal with that crap. But I'm like, this isn't worth it to me. And God, you mentioned seed oils, and people get really mad. And I realize there is a cross section of the following who will follow people who have dubious credibility. And I find it even challenging just to fight those battles anymore. I'm trying to platform good people, but it's exhausting.
So I have no problem admitting when I was at fault. No one has ever successfully like called me out. Like it always blows up in their face because like my following just like attacks them. But the one person who successfully called me out was a vegan when I just said some things about veganism that I didn't mean harm, but I was a little like caught up in the theatrical aspect of my post, and I said some things that I feel like were very insensitive, and that's when a call out for me was justified. And it was hard seeing a lot of comments being like, "Oh yeah, I can't stand this guy" and stuff like that. Because usually I'm used to people calling me out and people going like, James is great, right?" So I kind of felt it on the other side and it didn't feel great, especially because I was like, I wasn't trying to hurt you guys, but I wasn't really thinking. So when I made my apology video, everything was fine. But yeah, for the most part, when people call me out, I just like smirk because I'm like, you have nothing on me. You're gonna say how I promote obesity, you fucking moron.
There's something here. There's something deeper. and this is for, and I think anybody who's listened to this is probably really good on this one, but it's how you can tell the status chasing grifters from caring people is you just right there. You know, you can tell that this stuff affects you on an emotional level. The bad guys, doesn't matter how much they get called out. In fact, I found that it's pretty obvious that they want the engagement. They
Of
bait
course.
the engagement in and they sleep just fine at night and they seem to get off on the antagonism and the fighting.
Yeah, yeah. I try to make it so that if someone like calls me out, they never actually have anything on me, right? Like even though I'm really rough around the edges, I never make fun of physical attributes. I always keep it on the subject matter.
Hmm.
Like the most I'll do as far as physical attributes is if someone's complaining about the chemicals in diet soda, but they have enough like lip filler to sink the Titanic. Yeah, I'll bring up your lips. But that's it. But like for the most part, I try to make it so that if you call me out, you have nothing because I'm just calling out grifters, toxic people, bullies. I lift people up as much as I take people down. I have nothing to be afraid of.
And I suspect, in the grand scheme of things, and I'm a big believer in this, is people will self-select to your media and your approach, and they may not be ready for it right away. And it might take some time for them, thinking, oh, those ingredients are toxic when some loud person's yelling at breakfast cereal, right, walking through the aisle. And then
Mhm.
after a while, they get onto your media and go, hey, this doesn't work for me. I need something else. So
Yeah.
why are people falling for the extreme stuff? Because I swear, for a long time, I felt like what I think is the nutbaggery was niche.
Mhm.
But like I said earlier, like if I post something that I won't dare put up a post going near seed oils. I'm not interested in the blowback because people seem to just be drinking that Kool-Aid really hard. But a lot of these things are super mainstream now of these beliefs. And maybe I was wrong the whole time because curse of knowledge, right? I, have more than your average person's education in nutrition and biochemistry, et cetera, right? Post-secondary, education and life sciences stuff. But this stuff seems like, I mean, I had to cut off a conversation in a gym not terribly long ago by a guy I know socially because he started to challenge me on political stuff, and I just happened to like mention raw milk as this extreme thing, and he goes really hard at the raw milk thing, saying that he grew up
Right.
drinking this stuff, and I'm just like, no,
Yeah.
I'm talking to someone who's indoctrinated here. This is not going anywhere. This is going to stress me out.
Mhm. Yeah. So
Is it getting worse?
it's getting worse because I'm just like, I don't think you understand. There's nothing you can show me, nothing you can share with me that would make me go, oh, I get it now. Okay, yeah, I'll drink raw milk too, right? Like, stop. This is two plus two equals four. That's you shouldn't drink this. Seed oils are nowhere near as bad as you think they are. Food is not literally poison. The diet soda, the one per day, is doing nothing to you. And there's nothing you could say that would make me think otherwise. It just, this isn't like a back and forth. And that's what they have a hard time like understanding. Like I remember there was like a primal guy who had called me out because I showed like an example of like a healthy meal. It was like steak, air fried potato wedges, and like Brussels sprouts, and I had like a Coke Zero. He's like, he has the Coke Zero and he has a plastic water bottle in the background with like PP plastics and stuff. And he's a trainer, he's a coach, and all the comment section was like, oh my God, he thinks that the Coke Zero is healthy. And it's like, no wonder why he's like fat and bloated and stuff. And no wonder why he's balding. And like, first off, like right there, you tell me your intelligence level, right? Like the fact that like you can't just make this a civilized like debate. Like you're making this a part of your personality. And
Mm.
therefore, if we question it, then all your beliefs and who you are goes out the window. And all of a sudden, you're not as interesting as you thought you were.
Forgive the pause there, guys. I'm just like in awe of the shit that we deal with, and I sometimes feel frustrated in the growing body of loud voices and people I think who are buying into this stuff. And again, I can only hope that they will grow out of it and they'll find better information over time. And again, I know the listeners are already on our side in this stuff. Okay, let's pivot to another story.
Mhm.
You recently told the story of a client who made incredible progress in her lifestyle behavior, lost 110 pounds, But while doing pec deck flies, someone told her she shouldn't be lifting weights but doing cardio. What's wrong with this? Break it down.
The fact that someone had the balls to just come up to them and have anything to say, like to begin with, I don't care what they were doing. Shut up. Focus on your workout. You felt if by some wild reason you're listening, sir, who approached her, mind your own fucking business. She had nothing to do with you. You felt insecure for some reason. You wanted to make someone feel worse. You wanted to stand on her shoulders to feel tall. There's no other reason why you did this. You weren't doing it to help, okay? Because whatever you were trying to do wasn't going to happen in the next 10 seconds. You did it for you. That's what's wrong with it. And I flipped out.
Fair. I know you did a post about it. So let's say hypothetically, for whatever reason, misguided, even though you know at your heart that this person's intentions weren't coming from the right place. What if they genuinely believed that this person who's overweight should be doing cardio and shouldn't be doing something like a pec fly? Let's
If
break it
they
down.
genuinely believed it, then
What's wrong with the belief as opposed to the intentions? What's wrong with the actual belief?
first off, it's a mute point if their diet is not where it should be. That's the glaring thing. You don't know anything about what she's eating. Number two, strength training and cardio should be their own benefits from a performance and health standpoint. I think that diet, steps, sleep, and the baseline of behavior that we do on a day-to-day basis should pertain to our weight loss. You should strength train to get strong, do cardio for your cardiovascular health. I like
So
separating them.
good. I I look back and I think because I remember when I was much earlier in my career, I definitely thought when I saw someone overweight. Now I never ever said anything about it, but I remember thinking, well, that person who, you know, if you have again, because you're making an assumption their goal is to lose weight, right? So there's a flaw in that too. But let's say there's a person who's probably like, 80 to 100 pounds, quote, overweight, right? And you see them doing something like some sort of isolation, dumbbell curls, pec deck fly is a perfect illustration of this. And I remember thinking that person would be better served doing compound movements or cardio. I remember thinking that. Okay.
Okay.
So let's acknowledge that. Now, I no longer think that for a variety of reasons. I have my client Larry, and Larry has got metabolic health goals, right? That's something that we've talked about on social media. And Larry does like to do pec deck flies. Now, why do we have Larry do a pec deck flies? Well, if you took that in isolation, you haven't seen the fact that the guy's doing farmer's carries down and back the turf at the gym, or he likes to squat pretty heavy and he loves the deadlift super heavy, right? The nutrition is a different side of the discussion. We're working on that side of things. But Larry enjoys the experience. And this is where I really want to go to with this. If you've got someone who does a bunch of stuff that they like and
Yeah.
it keeps them in the gym and it's enough of a balance that they'll do some of the other things that maybe they don't love as much, but may, for units of time and effort, might actually yield better muscle building or metabolic health benefits, then that's a part of it. And if that person can learn to enjoy it, their long-term consistency and adherence is going to be vastly better. So quite frankly, if someone who's, and again, we're making the assumption, but for the purpose of this argument, let's say that their goal is in fact fat loss, and someone is doing a seated isolation type exercise,
Like a
but they
bicep.
like it, like a bicep curl, it's 100% okay. We don't know the rest of the effort, you know, and
Sure. They
I'm
have
fine
arms.
with that.
They have arms. They have a right to work out the arms just like a jacked person, just like a thin person. You know, like they just think I'm going to work out my arms. With an outside observer going, "Ooh, this person might be trying to lose weight. I bet their time would be better served doing this." We don't know the person. We don't know what they want to do. It's Tuesday. Maybe they do arms on Tuesday, and maybe this is their consistent schedule. It is what
Because
it is.
I recently had my friend Mark Fisher on, and we talked about unconditional positive regard. And sometimes I think when we encounter, someone that does this, and again, I think it requires a bit of insensitivity or that kind of attitude that's like, well, the truth can sometimes be really harsh. You don't shield people from the truth. But I think on some level, I can at least see from a charitable point of view that maybe that person had good intentions. I just think that they're misguided and they don't see the context of it. And I think they're what they did in this case is very negative, and it's not defending it. But sometimes even I try to remind myself, let me think about what that person was thinking, just to put it through that context.
Well, I will say this. I always think about a time when I was about 20 years old. There's a family friend of ours who I saw through social media was gaining weight. And without having a conversation, I remember messaging them asking if they wanted my services, right? And they're like, "Hey, I appreciate it, but really like I'm all good. Thank you." And I always felt bad about that because I was trying to be kind, but I didn't think I probably just made this person feel like shit. And I understand that he could have done that, but the context of the story you told, the fact that she went back into purging. A lot of that anger and emotion was coming from that.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I was taking it out on the person that caused her to feel less than with all the work that we were doing. It was more from a protective standpoint.
And I'm definitely not challenging you on your take on it, not whatsoever. This is an exercise I engage in specific for me and my soul to
Yeah,
try
that's fine.
to soften me sometimes philosophically. And it's actually a lot more about me. And I think as a principle, it can go a long way for all of us too to assume charitable intent in all
Sure.
situations.
So I know that I post a lot, but I don't think a lot of people realize how many rough drafts I do of certain people on call out. And I'm like, maybe they don't deserve this. And I will think it. And there's a lot of people who are like on the chopping block who I'm like, let me take another look at their page, because everyone assumes who I am from one post. So I said, let me take another look and see if they deserve this heat. Because my followers are a bit like ruthless. They'll go on their page.
Yep. And that's a tricky part too. Like I've seen, I mean, the people at Goob calls out. Guess what?
Mhm.
Fuck them. Like they deserve it on the average, right? I mean, overwhelmingly. I mean, at least the predators. Like sometimes, hey, listen, I know a couple people personally who were hit by the photoshopping stuff, and they're actually genuinely good people. In fact, one of them turned into one of Goop's clients. I met her after the fact, and
Yeah.
she's a good soul, so she's all right. And one actually turned into a client of mine much later
Mhm.
on. Wonderful human being, right? But and she was telling me about the comments that piled in on this stuff, and this is a terrible experience for this girl. So even then, but I'm talking about more about the people who are literal criminals, the sex offenders. Like, guess what? Game on, like just rip them apart. But I've also seen, and I know some really smart, wonderful people in the evidence-based physical therapy and strength communities, and if they go at someone over a disagreement about the evidence, man, the following, the audience, holy, they can be malevolent, right? And it's
Oh
again, it's
yeah,
the
yeah. Like an hour later, I see them turning off their the comments. And but believe me, there's some people who deserve it, and I will stand by that. Like I tag them hard. I'm like, go. There's other people, and I make it known. I'm like, hey, I'm not coming at you, or like everyone, please be respectful. I'm having a conversation. I'm just bringing another perspective here. Like I'll say that. I'll lessen the blow to kind of guide my like followers to not like. But if someone deserves it, I'll make it known that they deserve it.
I think you can tell from your media too. Okay, so let's give people something actionable. You got someone who has fallen off their fitness routine, something positive in their lifestyle. What's the first thing you do to try to halt the slide and reverse the direction, get them back?
I said, well, you came to me, so that's good. Okay, you didn't avoid it. Like you told me about this, so you're aware of it, which is great. You didn't just go into denial. So you understand that this is a coaching opportunity. That's great. That's growth. From here, let's think about when you were successful. What was going on, right? You felt like you had a lot of control. All the limiting beliefs that you told me about didn't seem to be there, but now they're coming back a little bit. What changed? And you just dig, dig, dig. And they'll usually come up with the answer. I find that if I shut up for a bit, they'll like come to it if I let them talk through it. And then I just validate them. And then from there, we together come up with action items to make this realistic.
So ask a lot of questions. Don't tell them what
Yes,
to do.
in a way, you're going to tell them what to do, but you're going to kind of guide there for them to get there themselves.
Let them figure it out.
Yeah. Like they'll usually be like, all right, so I had cookies and stuff, so I know just like no more cookies, right? Like that's it. I'm like, do you really think no more cookies for the rest of your life? Do you really want to make that commitment right now? I was like, well, no. I'm like, all right, so let's have a real conversation in reality.
All right. So everybody can follow you. and all the stuff we talked about and enjoy your videos on Instagram at James underscore. Where else do you want to send people? What else do you got for them?
Underscore Cappola Fit Coach on TikTok. And just don't worry about my YouTube right now. I'm just in the middle of building. It's such a pain in the ass.
Because I guess your TikTok would be what, significantly bigger even than your Instagram, right? In terms of your sheer
No, no,
followers.
no. My Instagram is way bigger than my TikTok.
Oh, okay.
For like 6 months, there was some glitch where my TikTok number was not like following, but like I saw like 1,200 followers, 2,400 followers like at a time. Like, but the number just wasn't growing. I've been messaging them like for so long. Like I should probably be at like 500,000 on TikTok too, but I don't know what happened. It was stuck on 236 for like months.
I've never found the bandwidth to do TikTok, but try to juggle everything with the podcast, or very regular Instagram presence, all of the coaching, et cetera. It's challenging to do it all. So it can't be the way you do video. Obviously, you can do the video and then post to both platforms. And
Yeah,
I think that's very wise. So,
that's what I do.
so for everybody listening, get them on both. Choose your primary platform you like most. Plug into what James is doing. There's a lot of really good energy coming out of your media. And yes, some of it's really funny. And overwhelmingly, the people that, I've seen you roasting, going at, they deserve it. They're doing stupid shit. They're often very thoughtless and senseless. But as we said, I also think that this is sort of a very, very tiny fragment of what goes on. And I think the overwhelming majority of gyms, gym spaces, and the people out there, genuinely good people. But we also know there are a lot of status chasing grifters in
Yeah.
the industry. They have a lot to benefit from by being loud voices, and the algorithm amplifies outrage. And I've long said to coaches too, if you can handle the backlash, learning to play the game with integrity, with ethics, is a very good way to combat
Yeah,
your
yeah.
your
Again, I do it in a way so that if someone calls me out, I'm not afraid. Like I'm not sexist, not racist, not fat phobic, not this or that. It's just most likely they're going to make fun of my body. Most likely they're going to make fun of me because they think that I'm enabling. It is what it is.
You got to have some thick skin, my friend, but we need people like you. So, because Lord knows I just don't have the emotional bandwidth to play the game the way that you do. Who knows? Maybe I'll play more video at some point, but I just don't think I can do it that way. But that's why I'm glad I've got you and other friends in the industry who do it well. So, for everybody, please go check out what James is doing on his social media. And again, if you really enjoyed James' energy, I would love it if you share this episode with someone in your world. The downloads have been great. The audience is growing, and I appreciate you guys for all your support. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, James. Appreciate you.
All right, thank you.